There's Tamu.
Hello.
Still
I might not be in for the whole one, but I'll be here for as much of it as I can.
Okay. You're still driving?
Yes. I pulled over in Casadega because, or had my daughter pull over because I usually lose service in the Casadega Fredonia area and didn't want to lose everybody. So for about 20 minutes of it, I sat in the parking lot in Casadega.
Did you know if Vicky was coming this one?
I don't know. I think she tries to make them all. So I would say probably. I'm not quite sure. What about Jeff?
The council people.
Oh yeah, that's what got me in for your text message did. I put one for you. Have one tomorrow though too, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's the
okay.
Mental health.
Because I had that one on my calendar and I didn't have. I didn't respond to Eddie's. I just figured it wasn't on my calendar, but now I know.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll get started. If Vicky comes, she comes. Otherwise, we'll start with introductions here and what our purpose is. My name is Brent Sheldon. I'm city councilman. I'm also the chairman of the Public Safety Committee, which has been tasked to look at doing reforming our police department here in the city of Jamestown. We've been given a mandate by the governor to do so. We've been in the process probably for 3 or 4 months now, having meetings with council people, staff people from the city of Jamestown. And then we have moved last week into the phase where we're talking to the citizens of Jamestown, the stakeholder groups, as we call them. And this is the stakeholder group for not-for-profit agencies. So we just want to go around the room here, introduce ourselves and say what agency you're with, or if you're a council person. Appreciate it. Start maybe with Katie here up in my left-hand corner here.
Sure. Hi there. My name is Katie Castro, and I am the board chair at Community Helping Hands.
Thank you.
I'm Major John Merchant with the Salvation Army for both Dunkirk and Jamestown.
My name is Sean Whitmer. I'm with Community Helping Hands.
I'm Diane Walleen at the Boys and Girls Club.
I'm Robin Lawson at the Boys and Girls Club.
Jeff Rotunda, UCAN City Mission.
I'm Michelle Hoden. I'm with Jamestown Community Learning Council.
Over and over.
Hey, Billy Witherspoon at the UCAN City Mission.
Is it me? Is it my turn? I'm Cindy Johnson. I'm with United Way. I do marketing and resource development over here.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. This is Amy. I'm the executive director of United Way of Southern Chautauqua County. I apologize for not being on video. I am driving to Erie to take my kids to a doctor's appointment, and I'm only going to be able to be on for about the first 15 minutes of the call. So thank you. Sorry.
All right. Thanks for joining.
And I'm Tamu Reinhardt, City Council Public Safety Committee.
I'm Trish Whetstone. I'm the Director of Program Services with Prevention Works. Also decided not to have my camera on. We're in the midst of moving offices and people around with boxes and everything, and I might have to move. So figured I wouldn't distract you with that, but I'm actually just subbing in for our Executive Director, Melanie. She can't make it, but I'm glad to be here.
Great. All right. And Eddie was on as the host. I don't know if he's still here.
I'm still here. Hello, everyone. It's Mayor Eddie Sundquist. I'm hosting this today. I'm going to be on and off, but just wanted to say thank you all for being a part of this, for providing some of your feedback. We really appreciate it. This is a very important part, and we've gotten a lot of really great feedback so far from different stakeholder groups, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts on working with our police department and integration with the community. Just a couple things to note here, and I apologize, Brent, if I'm taking your thunder. There are some tools to raise your hand. If you'd like to make some comments after Brent starts asking some questions, feel free to use those. We're also piloting closed captioning, so if you see yourself talking and there's some fun words on the screen, you can hit the closed caption button to turn that off if you would not like it. But we are trying to be more accessible and more inclusive in our Zoom meetings here at the city. So just to give everyone a heads up, it's not a live captioning, it's actually done through artificial intelligence, but we appreciate you all being on the call today.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think you mentioned, maybe didn't, this is being recorded. It will be posted on the city's website for transparency purposes. But just for having these smaller groups, just so they're a little easier to manage. But we're trying to get a wide range of people from the city of Jamestown involved. We do have, as I mentioned, or Eddie mentioned, there will be a healthcare mental health meeting tomorrow at 2. Next week, there will be a police law enforcement group. People from probation will be there. I believe the new district attorney will be there. I'm not sure if we're going to have any other stakeholder groups per se, but we do plan to have a couple groups maybe of just general people who weren't involved with the first set of calls that we're having here. We might not have fit into a group per se. We try to get business people. We only had a couple of those sign up. Senior citizens, we only had a few of them. So we might just put them all into a big group at the end and ask some of the same questions and ask about their experiences with the police department here in Jamestown. All right. Okay, so we'll get started here. I did send everybody some questions here. We'll go through those, and if we have time, there's a couple other ones we may ask as well. So we'll start with the first question. What do you feel is the role of the Jamestown Police Department in our community? Anybody want to start? I'm not sure where the hand raising tool is here, but anybody just want to jump in, that's fine. Just make sure unmute.
Obviously, I think it's to protect the citizens. It's one of the roles.
Okay.
Yeah, basic things, obvious, uphold laws and uphold any city ordinances and protection of citizens and property is basic function of the police.
So one of the main answers we had when we had the online survey was to protect and serve. So protecting the citizens, of course, serving the citizens. The police department is funded by the taxpayers. So basically taxpayers are their bosses. Any other roles involved with the community per se?
I think maybe educate the community too, how to be safe, what to do if there's a problem, build up a connection with community members.
Right, especially the young people in the city of Jamestown. I think that's where we need to have the police involved with education, so they have a good positive experience with the police department. Maybe at the school, maybe at a playground, basketball game, something like that. I think that those are all good things.
I guess to add to that sense of education, I would also say that I don't know whether it's the police department's responsibility directly or if it is the city's, but to produce data that can be analyzed regarding arrest rates. I think the data is really important, especially when we're talking about nonprofits and how we can best serve our city. If we can't see data, it's very hard to ascertain that.
police department has been posting data on their Facebook page. I don't know if anybody has friended the police department, but they have been doing a monthly posting of data. So I think that's trying to be a little more transparent with what they do. Anything else? Okay. The second question then is, it's a little more personal. I just wondered, what has your experience been with Jamestown Police Department? Have you personally had an experience with them, or a family member or a friend? Any stories that you would like to share?
Yes, we, the Jamestown Police Department, I think in conjunction with maybe the Sheriff's Department, they provided our visitors with some safety training because we do go into homes in the community, and that was really valuable. They gave us some good insight about even parking your vehicle where you should be parked when you go into a neighborhood, and just being aware of where you're at, and aware of when you're in the house where the exits are, that kind of thing, which I thought was really valuable for our home visitors.
Well, they definitely play a role in domestic violence and sexual assault. We have both of those in our shelter, and they have been instrumental in helping a lot of people. I know that in the last few weeks, the police have been called a few times to our shelter, and it was a very quick response, and they were able to take care of the situations rather quickly, and definitely professionally. You know, they gave the person a stern warning, and told them what could possibly happen to them if they were to appear again. So we appreciate the police department.
Here.
I can speak on both a personal level because my brother-in-law is actually a JPD officer, and a bunch of my friends are. Also, I can speak on behalf of Community Helping Hands. I think we have a really good relationship with them. Anytime we need their services, they come right down. They're very good at working with our clients, even our staff members. They've brought people down for referrals to get clothing, furniture. We've really helped out a lot of people just working with them. They also use our building to do some training for the K-9 unit and the SWAT team. So that's a good relationship that we have. We also actually, every quarterly, we get the bikes from them that they have had in evidence that nobody's claimed. So we've helped out a lot of people in the community with bikes to get to work, to get to appointments. And it's always good to see, you see somebody riding a bike and you know it came from us. And even JPD officers say, hey, I know you gave that bike to them, he still got it, he didn't trade it in or anything. So we have a lot of good communication with them. Every once in a while, they'll come down here and just kind of say hi to people and just walk around if they got a few minutes. But so it's really good for Community Helping Hands. A lot of them are my friends, so I get to see them a lot, and I see what they do and how they respond to everybody. So I kind of enjoy it working with them for Community Helping Hands.
Whenever I've had to call them from the Boys and Girls Club for any issue, they've come right away and been very helpful, very professional. And on a personal level, I did have my wallet stolen out of my car a couple of years ago, and it was during the winter, and the police officer went up and down my street and found all of the cards except for my driver's license and the wallet. So I was very happy for that outcome as well.
I'd just like to touch on the police department has been very welcoming for United Way to come in and supportive of our programming as well. They're one division through the city of Jamestown that is supportive. They're always helpful and kind. And on a personal level, if I've ever had to contact them for any reason, they've been super helpful and friendly, and they would guide you to what type of help that you would need. So yeah, I've never had a bad experience with the police department.
We've also used them. We've had a few police officers that participated in our roll and read program that we do in June. And so they read to, we have parents and little kids that will go to different stations throughout the downtown Jamestown, and they participate by reading to the kids. And then we also, in our after school amigos program, they've also come and they brought their vest and just some of their equipment and show the kids to talk to the kids about being a police officer and what they do, and to kind of to be a friendly face for the kids and let them not be afraid of them. So it was really good that way too.
Good too.
I'd just like to add something real quick here. I do notice that a lot of our staff and volunteers have never, I mean, every time somebody deals with a cop, it's probably for a bad situation, but them coming down and just meeting, because the officers know me, that the staff and volunteers have actually got to know them, and they see them and they say hi and thank you and stuff. So I think just having that person like myself to be a kind of a mediator between has really helped. And I've seen it. We used to have a family center. Some of the officers would come down there and watch the kids ride. So it's kind of just having that mutual person to bringing them together to realize that cops aren't all that bad. It was a really good thing. And I mean, even today, some of the officers say they see kids that they used to watch ride in the skate park when they were 9. Now they're, 16 years old and stuff. So it's kind of a good relationship that we've seen come out of it.
Great. Anyone would like to add to that? Okay, let's move on to the next question then. What ways can we improve policing here in Jamestown and build better relationships with the community? And it follows right on what Sean said, building better relationships.
Yeah, like I said before, I think just having opportunities for the public and the community to actually meet these guys and understand who they are, other than with a badge, is a great opportunity. I know a lot of times parades and stuff, they walk around and they're willing to talk to and everything, but I think it's been tough this year, but I think that opportunity for them just to say hi is a great way for the community and the officers to really get together and meet.
Tim, oh, go ahead, Katie.
Okay, I will jump on the back of that and echo Sean, and I think probably what I would imagine that we all feel is that I think the challenge is how can we continue to engender empathy, right, on both sides, towards law enforcement and towards community members, especially underserved community members. And I think that we do that by creating experiences of mutuality and dignity for our community. But one of the ways I think that we can engender that empathy is, like I said before, we really need to see data. And Brent, you mentioned the Facebook page for the local police department. I think that's really important, especially in this year, like Sean mentioned, where it's a lot harder for police officers to be visible and have contact and conversation with community members. Their social media is now extremely important. And so their PR is a really important way for them to create bridges of trust with the community. And I think it's really important.
Raise your hand there.
Yeah, this is kind of a comment question, a couple of things all wrapped into one. I would concur with Katie's observation or input about the data. I think I don't like to produce data, but once you start looking at data, I think data tells a story. And in addition to the police data, it would be probably when we think about community relations, we're looking at all these stakeholder groups. Not-for-profits are a part of our community. And it would be interesting to see how data can be looked at alongside of each other. And by that, I mean, do the not-for-profits who are providing maybe a service, be it, Community Helping Hands or the Salvation Army or any of those that are really helping with more of our at-risk populations or low socioeconomic populations, to begin to look at some sort of partnerships with law enforcement, so we can begin to kind of attack some of the issues that I think may consistently put people in the law enforcement realm based on whether it might be drug addiction or homelessness or something like that, and really start to look at some of the data that kind of shows us where we might be able to make some inroads. We just did a stakeholder conversation with the school systems, and to a certain degree, within the school system, there's only so far a police officer can go, and then they have to kind of say, this is as much as I can do. And so where do not-for-profits and other organizations, be it probation, be it the faith-based community or something like that, begin to stand in the gap for some of these situations where law enforcement can only come and do so much? And where can that be more of an integrated, seamless sharing of ideas and resources and funding and things like that, so that we're all not working in silos around maybe some of the same issues? I don't know if that's a question, it's a statement. Do you see that that's something that could be improved? Just kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that's all really good. I definitely think that it's a both sides kind of meet in the middle sort of a situation where it comes to, improving policing, improving relations with the police department. There's been a lot of, for whatever reason, many reasons, there's been a lot of trust broken on both sides. The citizens I know feel in a lot of cases, maybe some unfair treatment or unfair targeting in different situations. And I know that the police are also, weary at having a shadow cast on them in, certain ways as well. So I do definitely think that working together to create some sort of partnerships in the community is something that needs to be done. One thing that's been kicked around for a while now during meetings kind of like this is the reinvigoration of a citizens police academy, where citizens would be able to kind of go through some of the same training and have, a small taste of what police officers actually go through, going on ride-alongs and learning about the laws and learning different tactical sort of approaches, to where they would be able to have their eyes opened a little bit to the complexities of the police world. And another thing would be for police to be more accessible when they're not on a call. Finding ways to create those relationships, like Sean was saying, how some of the police were going to the skate park, or, just hanging around in places where they can interact with people while they're not, trying to get information or, trying to, handle an actual case or a situation. Because the more that you do see those faces and kind of interact in a way that's not formal, or official, then you create those bonds. I know I have some friends that are police officers, and we met outside of any sort of police anything, because I don't tend to get in trouble. So and those are good friends, and we've trained jujitsu together, and just hung out and watched sports on TV, or just different things like that, all because of those relationships that were formed outside of an official capacity.
But yeah, the Citizens Police Academy, that is something that's on the new Police Chief Jackson's agenda to try to implement there in the future. So I think that's a great one.
I think I'll piggy on Billy's statements about building relationships. So, I was blessed to move into an incredible neighborhood watch unit. So we've all been really tied together. We have a texting system if there's concerns with direct neighbors. Everyone's really open to speaking amongst each other. And just recently, the police department has reached out to our neighborhood watch contacts to provide different types of information and support services. Just there's been a couple of concerns that have happened throughout our neighborhood, but also to have that relationship with them is key to help us all stay together too, and know that as united, we can do hard things. So
I think I think you're right. I think one of the difficulties is anytime an officer comes down to train at the Community Helping Hands at Gateway Center, they learn about what we do at Community Helping Hands, and they see the clothing and the furniture, and they saw the Family Center. They see all these things and they didn't know about it. And it's just, I've been in the nonprofit world for 10 plus years now, and there's still things that I don't know our services, and I learn every day on Zoom. I just think maybe we get together and just kind of have an updated list of what all these nonprofits and faith-based organizations are doing, so the officers are like, oh yeah, I know where to send this person, or I know where I can get this help. A lot of them that come on new might not know until they come to a call at Community Helping Hands to come down to train or something. So if they knew that the Boys and Girls Club had this opportunity and this opportunity, I think we could connect a lot more and just kind of use a resource, because we have a lot of good nonprofits here and organizations that police can use. They just are not aware of it, or have the inability to think about it at the time because they're so busy. So
does the United Way have a pretty good updated list of the not-for-profits in the area and the contacts and what they do?
We have resource guides posted. With COVID, we actually have like real-time resource guides on our website. It's www.uwayscc.org. But we also invest in a community service telephone number, and that is 211. So anybody who needs help can call that number, and it's similar to that of 911. Obviously, emergency, you dial 211 from your phone. And what's really neat is that a lot of times people call that telephone number and they get more help than what they were actually seeking, because it really is a general, universal, one-stop phone call to the services that are provided directly close to them.
I think one more thing that is important to add here that is not something that anyone is unaware of. We're all aware of this because we're all serving similar populations, is that when we talk about bridge building with our local law enforcement, we can't cast aside the fact that we have a very large gap with our Spanish-speaking population that is unable to communicate with so many of our officers. And so when we talk about things like PR and the social media page, it would be really wonderful if the Jamestown Police Department could find a way to create a bridge with the Spanish-speaking community, even if only through social media right now, if in other way, if the obstacles are too hard to overcome in other bridge building ways. But one of the really interesting things is my husband is a caseworker with the county. And so almost all of his caseload is Spanish speaking. And so he often is the one making calls on behalf of his clients to the police department. And so I think when Tamu spoke of how can we utilize partnerships with our local nonprofits, several of us who are represented here have Spanish-speaking staff, and it would be interesting to see which ways we could partner together to better fill that gap so that our Spanish-speaking community is well connected and feels like they are served and protected by our law enforcement as well.
Very good point. And even to piggyback on that and take it a little bit further, I have recently, Katie and I and Javier, her husband, are friends, but we've also worked together professionally on, cases helping Spanish-speaking population here at the mission that were on her husband's caseload, navigate, Social Security, navigate, getting help from the police and all of those sorts of things. And it was, knowing them made it a little bit easier. So I can imagine that there would be some frustration out there for a large portion of our community that was unable to get that same help that that we were able to access pretty easily.
I would like to give Katie kudos for what she said. I think it's incumbent upon as many agencies as possible to look at their resources and their funding and how they structure their organizations to make sure that they have people in their organizations that can do the bilingual work, not only the written, but oral and social media piece. We're putting a lot of we have a growing community, but we don't have a lot of people out there who can do that work. Katie's husband being one of them, Billy Torres being another. There's only a handful of people that a lot of people rely on. And I don't want to burn them out. So it's incumbent upon everyone from City Hall to law enforcement to any organization to really begin to look at building their capacity internally so these people can spend time doing the jobs that they're supposed to be doing. And I can only speak from education standpoint. A lot of times people in the translators in the schools are being asked to go above and beyond what their job descriptions were just because there wasn't anyone that had the background. And so I believe that it's the responsibility of the whole community to look at how we can better leverage law enforcement, city hall, not-for-profit, business, or whatever. So that was just me thinking out loud.
You also have anything like that about how we can improve policing and build better relationships within the community? Okay. Move on to the next question then. What does equality and social justice in regards to local law enforcement mean to you? There's been a lot of discussion on social media about this, the news.
I'll jump in again. I think it means accountability. I think it means some of the things that we've been mentioning. When we talk about serving and protecting, I'd like to see data that supports that that's being done as a taxpayer and as a nonprofit leader. Accountability is really important. And this is, again, where that PR piece comes in. It is that vehicle of communication is incredibly important because it does just that. It shows that they are being accountable to our local community.
I think when you talk about social justice, you have to talk about the actual reverse, social injustice. What is happening in the community where people think that, you know, things are unfair, or that there's, you know, different things happening in this neighborhood that aren't happening in this other neighborhood. And once you start doing that, and then you can pick apart how to make those things right. So I guess when you're talking about social justice, it's making the wrongs that are happening, that are being talked about, or, you know, not talked about at times, making those things right for the people that are suffering or that are being, you know, persecuted in whatever way. And then when you're talking about equality, you know, I mean, it's very simple. Just treating everybody fairly, consistently. I guess consistency is the key when you're talking about equality, because, you know, if you're dealing with a domestic violence issue in, you know, the Valley, with 20 cars coming to the scene, why wouldn't you deal with a domestic violence situation, you know, on the west side of town with 20 cars coming to the scene? You know, people are from my experience, especially recently, as some of you may know, I was a part of the Jamestown Justice Coalition, which has stirred up a lot of these conversations as well. You know, hearing from people in the community about their experiences with the police and how it's different on one side of town than it is on the other, has been an eye-opener. So being consistent with the way that situations are handled, the way that people's feelings are validated, those are all things that we've been hearing about that are maybe not happening as well as they could be happening here in Jamestown.
Appreciate that, Billy. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Definitely something we need to work on here. All right, and the last question that I gave everybody was, what does equality and, oops, excuse me, what are some of the ways to improve transparency and accountability? I think we've touched on some of these already, but there's other ones. So you want to reiterate what you said?
I think when we bring up transparency and accountability, the Jamestown, the City of Jamestown page, the Jamestown Police Department page are all good ideas on Facebook. Social media is how a lot of people communicate and receive information rather than newspapers and traditional news sources. So that'd be really good to keep information and things flowing through those channels. Accountability, I know that the Human Rights Commission has been reformed and is in effect now, or they're doing their thing. So to see that happening is a step in the right direction. I know that this is another issue where it boils down to both sides needing to give in certain ways. So if you're talking about the citizens, citizens need to report their, what's going on in their neighborhoods. Citizens need to say that this is happening. And I know there's a lot of, no snitching and all this sort of stuff, but that stuff needs to be broken down. But in order for them to feel comfortable doing that, they have to see movement on the side of the police to say that when they do report something, then there is going to be, some sort of outcome other than, thank you for your report, and then nothing else really being done about it. So it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some effort on both sides. Data is what Katie was saying. We need to see that when we do report something, it's handled. We do need to see that when there's a complaint about a person, place, or thing, that something is going to be done about it. So, but then again, on the side of the citizen, they need to report those things so that something can, potentially be done about it.
Billy's, when you talk about, when you report something and seeing the evidence of what you reported, sometimes that's difficult, I have found, when dealing with the police, because sometimes they cannot report, they cannot say what their investigations are, because, right on my street, I'm sorry for being late, people, but, right on my street, I had a drug dealer, living across the street, and I used to report it, and so then, it was to a point where, you get so frustrated, and then I was told, you know what, we got an investigation. We can't tell you, that somebody's watching, we got this, we got that. So sometimes it's kind of difficult, and for them to report. And I did have an incident where someone came to me and reported an incident about police treatment. And that was during the Chief Raider, Rex Raider. And I was able to, that was the only time I ever personally witnessed where they had went through an investigation and I got a written report back. And I don't know, but I think sometimes as citizens, we don't see things, we don't think things are happening, but things are happening, and sometimes things are not happening. But it's just I think sometimes the police find themselves in a rock and a hard place, not being able to go back and tell you exactly what is going on. And I agree with you. If you see it, report it, because don't then sit around 10 years later still talking about the same thing, same issue. But did you say anything? No, I didn't say anything. Well, things can't happen if you don't report it, so it's very important that we get it. And, and when kids talk about snitches, we're like, please, when somebody get in trouble, they're going to sing like they in the a cappella choir, because they get them, it's me or you. Sorry, you got to go, and then, what? And the prison is full of snitches. So people, they think, it's just a false thing that people talk about snitches get stitches, but it's like, please, there's all kind of police informants and things like that. So that's just a a bad thing that I don't know how to get over that, but that's just a cop out, I think sometimes, but you are so right that we do need to report what we see. It's very important. And, even when a police officer, I always tell people, get the card number, write down the time. If they won't give you the badge number, you can always get the card number and report that. I remember Barry Swanson taught me that a long time ago. He goes, Vic, just tell them that they, just get the card number, write down the time, and report it, and report it to, if you don't think that you're getting anything from the police, still, you have the mayor, you have, I think there's an educational thing too that the community needs to know also, that there are other ways to get your ways done. And I don't know how to do that. I know we need to do a better way of educating the public on how to do certain things. And, I think that'd be better. And I hope that comes out of all these stakeholder things of, awareness piece for everyone.
I do know that Chief Jackson was talking about really wanting to put in a public information officer type position so that, these things can happen. There could be some community education. There can be some, just a person even to just be the forefront, and you could go to them with questions and different things like that. So it's really exciting to hear that he is very into bolstering up that community relations piece to where, we can have conversations and be able to learn how to better navigate that system. So I'm looking forward to that.
He's got some great community ideals. I don't know if you already talked about them, Brett, but he's talking about trying to get together a Citizens Police Academy, a Big Brother program, Coffee with a Cop. So he's and he has already. There's more cops on new walking. Who are walking in neighborhoods. So which is always a great thing. So the more the community sees the police officers in a different role as humans, who are happen to wear a blue uniform, and that there's more intermingling with them. I think the trust value will come because, we all know, when you break bread with someone, when you fellowship with someone, you get to know who they are. And so it's hard to get to know somebody and trust them from a car when they're only coming in bad situations. So I'm excited also about Chief Jackson and some of his initiatives that he's looking to implement.
Okay, let's throw out one more question here. Oops, sorry.
No, but I just wanted to ask, not to come late being all chatty Cathy, but I just want to kind of step back for when you start talking about the social justice piece. I was just wondering if any of your members or clients or have personally talked to you about situations that they had been dealing with or are dealing with. So I just kind of want to get a feel from each agency of, have you heard of anything from the people you serve?
I can definitely say that, being here at the mission, we have a really intersectional population, I guess you can say. We have a lot of homeless people, obviously, but we also have a lot of people dealing with mental illness. We also have a lot of people dealing with drug abuse and combinations of all of those things. And they find themselves at times in situations where just because they're hanging out at a certain place, the cops will automatically, assume certain things or treat them a certain way because they think that they're involved in something that they may not be. And we also have a lot of people that are from other places in the county that don't know their way around Jamestown or don't know, where to go and where not to be. So they end up, getting, I don't want to say chased out of a place, but, talked to or questioned, or because they're hanging out in a certain place, but they don't know any better. So we've heard those types of situations. Also, we've had to call the police here, many times, either remove somebody or to come and, maybe take somebody to the hospital, or, different things like that. And I've brought this up in other meetings kind of like this, that there have been times when it seems like maybe they heard, somebody's at the mission causing trouble, and they've come in kind of, a little bit heavy-handed for whatever the situation, was actually calling for. And, we've seen a couple of older gentlemen that were not treated well on their way out, and different things like that. But on the flip side of that, Officer Moya was very gracious in dealing with the guy that I was talking about earlier, and he, gave him a ride back to the station and spoke to him and was able to interpret in Spanish and different things like that. We've had other officers that have come through to just, that have been very, very nice. I mean, I guess that's all. Like, they've just been really nice in dealing with the guys and their issues, and seem very sympathetic. And we've also had detectives come through and, asking us about former guests or possible guests, and we've been able to work with them too. So we've seen kind of the full gamut of what could happen, I guess.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Just one final question then, and we'll wrap this up here about 3 o'clock. What are some things that you feel would help improve policing in the city of Jamestown? And we talked about transparency. One thing we have is the officers all have body cameras, but the detectives do not at this point. So that's something we're looking at funding to improve some transparency there. We're probably going to have to reach out to some of the local foundations to help fund this, because there really isn't a lot of grant funding out there.
Do the police officers or the police department get invited to any special events that a not-for-profit may have? Not necessarily, because we're blocking off the streets for a parade, but are they included in any of the maybe special events that are offered by some of the not-for-profits around town?
We've had several fundraisers in the past years, and like our outside parking lot, we work with Rebecca Louise from Dunkirk, and we hand out like 500 to 800 backpacks a year. Usually JPD will come down and have a squad car there, and the kids can go up and talk to them. They can sit in the car. We've had really good interactions with that, and JPD love it. I think it's just a timing thing of whether they can have somebody down there or not, which I don't know what that is, but so we've had them involved, and it's been very successful.
Yeah, I'll come behind that. Aside from my responsibilities with Community Helping Hands, I helped co-lead the Brave Girls Empowerment Movement last year in the city of Jamestown. And we had a great event outside of Willow Bay Theater, inside and outside of Willow Bay Theater. And we had a bunch of police officers, female police officers, stop down at the event, and they were participating in the block party, dance party with the girls. We got footage of it, and the JPD allowed us to share it on Facebook. And it was just so great to see that. Again, common mutuality that engenders trust and empathy. I think the more and more that we can do that, the better. And just coming again here to see that the more we can build in understanding with our Spanish speaking community through interpretation services, or I really think that one of the places we can do that again is leveraging social media for that end, because it doesn't take the same amount of effort as hiring a Spanish speaking officer as it would to just make sure all the information that's being put out in English on the social media pages is equally put out in Spanish. But this is really important. And just to kind of go back to Councilwoman James' question last time with where do we see a lack of social justice, it's just, for me, primarily, it's been in that area, both because my husband and I are Spanish speaking and have relationships with a lot of people who are in the community in a professional and non-professional capacity. We hear these stories often that they are frustrated when they're reporting. They feel misunderstood. It's a scary experience for them. They feel like they need an advocate or someone to accompany them. And again, to go back to Councilwoman Tamu's remarks, we burn the same Spanish speaking people out over and over again by making them be the advocates or the people who accompany individuals when they're reporting things. And so this is one of the areas that I really feel like the nonprofits can help step up in to build bridges. So I look around this table and I know quite a few of us have Spanish speaking employees. I think this is one of the areas that we can really help serve our community and serve this ideal of serving and protecting alongside our law enforcement is in empowering our Spanish-speaking employees to assist law enforcement in this capacity with our clients that want to make reports.
Talk a little bit about diversity in the police department, just to give you a little, some statistics there. We have 52 male officers, 8 female officers. And of that, we do have 2 Black officers and 1 Hispanic officer. So definitely know we need to improve the diversity, but how do we do that? How do we improve the diversity of Jamestown Police Department?
As a member of the coalition previously, we have talked about this at length with, officers, with Chief Jackson. And a lot of it has to do with education. A lot of it has to do with education. It's getting out there, informing kids at the high school level, that joining the police force, it would be worth their while. Showing people that it is a profession that is necessary, and if they see injustice in their community and have an opportunity to fix it themselves in that sort of a way, then they should go for it. We've talked about different ways of possibly sponsoring some people to go through the academy, people of color. One of the hurdles that we've heard of several times is the testing to get into the academy. It's not necessarily based on who would make a good officer. It's kind of based on more who takes a good test. And we all know that, that's not everybody's strong suit. So it's tough to get the people that you're actually looking for in the door when they're already, blocked by needing a certain score or being in the top, 3 of the class to even get a sniff at a job interview in the Jamestown area. So that's very difficult, but the more people that we have looking at that as an option for a profession, the more people of color, the more just diverse group of people, the better. So education and getting out there and doing some groundwork. That's where these relationships come in. Once you see somebody that looks like you or comes from where you come from, that's doing a certain thing, that it's possible for you. And so if we have these people out in the community that are sharing their stories as police officers, then, maybe that would set that spark in somebody else.
we have had school resource officers in the schools in the past, but we don't currently have a contract with the public schools at this point. So I think once the kids are back in school full time, I think hopefully the schools will reintroduce that, because I think that's a great recruiting tool too. That the school resource officers can talk with these students and talk to them about the police department, what they need to do to prepare for a career in that. I had to leave the school stakeholders group meeting a little early just to get ready for this meeting. So I don't, Tamu, was that discussed at all?
Yes, it was.
Good. Good.
School resource officers were, they were very, talked about and very positive. Kids connecting with them, them connecting with kids. So that was a very, they missed the school officers also.
Right.
You know,
One of the
you
things.
Go ahead, Tam. Go ahead, Tam. Go ahead, Tammy.
One of the things that I know Sheriff Gerasi is looking at getting back into, and maybe he can partner with JPD on this, I'm not quite sure. Sheriff Gerasi is now up at Chautauqua, so funding may be a little bit easier for him to get connected with. But he used to run a program when he was county sheriff, almost kind of like a week-long law enforcement camp. It was like a day camp, where they looked at not only law enforcement, but forensics, evidence collection, and things like that. That just was defunded, I think, due to budgets. But he is working on finding a way to revive that, because I also think that kids, when they think of law enforcement, only think of policing. And there are so many different pieces and parts of law enforcement that I don't think that they realize that they can get into, specifically around, you know, the cyber crimes and things like that. We have a young man, Henry Leeper from, is it Henry or Aaron? I can't remember which one, who's a
Aaron.
U.S. Marshal. He's a U.S.
Aaron.
Marshal, you know. He flies on the planes and had to do some work in front of the White House during the protests during the summer. And, you know, he's one of ours that could easily, you know, be tapped into to kind of get kids thinking about, doesn't have to just be a beat cop, or excuse me, on the force, but there are so many places in law enforcement that could use minorities and good quality bilingual people and things like that to be looking at. So I think that's what Sheriff Gerasi hopes to be able to do. So hopefully that's something that can be either connected with JPD and you know, like a partnership or something like that. But I do know in his role at Chautauqua, that is something he wants to start again.
You know, it's funny you were saying, because that's what I was gonna say when I was with the youth services. We used to do a program called Careers in Law Enforcement, and it was which was a 7-week program, and it showed the kids the whole, you know, I mean, even being a stenographer, you know, just as you were saying, Tim, it shows them, it just doesn't mean that you're a police officer, you know. And it was great, and we ended the program by taking them to Albany, you know, to the forensic, you know, building there. But I was just wondering, you know, I didn't know if some of the non-profit, especially dealing with youth, maybe, you know, introducing kids, you know, into law enforcement, getting them, you know, maybe even doing some small pieces from, you know, from early age on, you know, because I think elementary is where, you know, we start planting the seed, you know, and maybe just doing little things and having people come in and, you know, building up that interest. And so sometimes we have to groom our own, you know, we have to groom our own people to have them ready, you know. And that's when, you know, that's what I'm always trying to tell, you know, the Black community, you know, you always can't wait for the government to do things for you. You know, we have to do our own, you know, just like everybody, you know, you have to build your own stuff. You know, you have to educate your own, you know, your own community, you know, start at home, you know, teaching starts at home. And so if we can just start introducing and doing things, you know, like that, you know, the law enforcement, even for boards, you know, it's just like, you know, when board openings come, you know, if you already take people through a boardmanship program, you know, how to read a budget, you know, what are the terms, you know, if you feel more comfortable, you know, because I remember when I first started out, and I started out as, you know, and I know I was the token, I was a twofer, you know, I was a woman and I was Black, you know, so when I became on a board, I was filling 2 spots, you know, but I didn't know a lot. You know, and sometimes you just sit there and you just listen and you look around like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? You know, but if, you know, but it takes you years and years to finally, you know, to catch on. But if we can educate our own kids, you know, starting at elementary, you know, not, you know, you don't have to be like, you know, Tammy was saying, you don't have to just be a beat cop. You can be a forensic. You know, everybody's into the NSSI, whatever those things are. And, you know, everybody's all into that, you know, so we can just introduce them as, you know, because they think it's cool anyways, you know, so just I start introducing them to the different pieces that are involved in law enforcement. So when, you know, like JPD, they had 5 openings and that, you know, and so I think that was kind of unheard of to have that many openings, but, you know, in communities are like, hey, what about us? What about us? Like, so then you ask your community, what about us? Who do we have? Who do we have to put up? You know, it was like Billy was, you know, saying, who, you know, we have to start educating. And so when these spots become open, that we can say, hey, what about, you know, Timmy Smith over here, you know, he's gone through this, he's done this. And, you know, and that testing is also, you know, an issue that, you know, that has to be a part of the process too, you know, how to take a test, you know, just how to study for the test and, you know, just working with people with that. So, yeah, but I'm a big believer that educating, you know, the education piece and starting at the elementary level, you know, I don't care, you know, whatever kind of information, as long as they get something, you know, some kind of information to pique their interest. And I think planting those seeds and just keep watering them as they, you know, as they go, by the time when they're of, you know, of age and eligible, that they'll be, you know, the community will be much better when you grow your own. And then you don't have to worry about police residency.
At the risk of redundancy, I'll jump in here one more time to talk about the power of social media. I know that we all have a disdain for social media right now. Okay, I do too. As a millennial, we know that this has been a tool that's been used for division of our nation for the last several months, maybe longer than that. But it also is one of the most important tools we have in storytelling right now. And so if we want to improve our recruitment efforts, one of the most powerful tools then we have is social media. And we know that millennials are digital natives. So Gen Z is even further ahead of us, right? Like it's at their fingertips all the time. So if we're talking about recruiting from Gen Z who's in school right now, then we need to do a really good job of leveraging social media and not just Facebook, because they're not on Facebook, right? They're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, they're on things that I don't even know what they are yet. They're not on Facebook. And so if we want to capture the imagination and attention and power of story with Gen Z, well, gosh, we better get on the platforms that they're on to be able to communicate with them well about all the variety of positions that exist within the police department, about the kind of stories that capture optimism and excitement. I mean, I think even about recently, the Department of Development for the city, under Crystal Serdick's direction, has done a fantastic job, in my opinion, of leveraging their social media platform. I think that everything they share stirs optimism. And so their audience is older, and so Facebook's a great place for that. But if we're talking about recruitment specifically, it would be really wonderful if there were some efforts directed towards younger social media platforms that could create that same kind of energy, buzz, excitement, optimism, and storytelling that would capture the hearts of the next generation and cause that kind of gravitational pull towards the profession.
And Katie. My daughter says Facebook's for old people.
All right, I'm old, I admit it. All right, well, we're gone after 3 p.m. here. I want to thank everybody for their time, for their input. And as we mentioned, this will be posted to the city's webpage. Just one thing we forgot to mention, we'll try to keep you in the loop about police reform in Jamestown. The governor wanted you stakeholders to be ambassadors for police reform too. So something that I think, we can help each other, and you can help us as we move forward with police reform and what we're going to do here in the city of Jamestown. So, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.